Diddy got in trouble yesterday in court. The judge threatened to kick him out of the courtroom for the remainder of the trial because the judge alleges that Diddy was nodding to the jurors and just making motion to the jurors with his head while her cross-examination was happening. Now, here's
he said that he was nodding vigorously. I don't even know how you do that.
The judge was like, I want to make sure you're not flirting, okay? You in here making eye contact with people bricked up.
Somebody must have complained beforehand and said they felt like it was intimidation. I bet you that's what it was.
Diddy tried to intimidate the jurors with his facial expressions, but the judge wasn't having it. He straight up warned him that he would be thrown out of the courtroom.
The judge says, I was very clear this morning that there were not to be any facial expressions or other attempts to have any interaction with the jury whatsoever, any influence on the jury whatsoever. And I could not have been more clear in terms of what I said. You heard me, right? And his attorney says, I did. So then the judge says, well, there was a line of questioning where your client was nodding vigorously and looking at the jury. And there was a subsequent moment we had a sidebar and I looked and I saw your client looking at the jury and nodding vigorously during that line of questioning. This is absolutely unacceptable. Is it going to happen again, Mr. Agnifilio? And then he says it's not going to happen again. And then the judge says if it does happen again, he won't be allowed in this courtroom for the remainder of the trial.
So why did Diddy even try to do something like that? Well, it all started when the judge made a powerful announcement at the beginning of the day's session. The judge set 3 strict rules. Diddy was not allowed to stare at the jury. The expressions were to be controlled as much as possible, and no one was allowed to reveal or describe the witnesses, who are to remain anonymous. But if Diddy knew how to follow the rules, he would not have been here in the first place.
By warning the jury and court attendees not to describe her in any way that would possibly reveal who she is.
The defendant is not allowed to make any kind of eye contact with the jury. The judge told them that is absolutely unacceptable and asked if it was going to happen again. The defense team said no, it will not happen again. And the judge replied, well, that's good, because if it does, then I may remove Combs entirely from the courtroom, which would be quite a big deal, Morgan.
You know, just in case Diddy got any funny ideas, he looked Diddy dead in the eye and made it clear that there would be no funny business, not even a hint of influence on those jurors. Diddy nodded along with his attorney, Mark Agnifilio, and the trial started. Then came the first witness, someone by the name of Jane Doe. She was speaking anonymously, but she spilled some secrets that had Diddy looking very uncomfortable. She began discussing how she was one of Diddy's girlfriends from 2021 to 2024. She described how he was generous with money, paid her rent, and gave her monthly allowances. She revealed that things were all good until Diddy started getting into some weird territory. According to her, he was into some pretty messed up fantasies.
She spoke about May 2021, and she said that was the first time that Diddy introduced the idea of these fantasies.
And to make matters worse, he pressured her into agreeing with him.
And at a certain point, she felt pressure because he was paying her rent at about $10,000 a month. So Jane on the stand describing very much the early stages of the relationship, how these hotel nights played out, with some graphic detail about just even the escorts, ejaculating on her at the end, and that kind of being something that Diddy would expect before they themselves would be intimate, and just how that made her feel.
As Jane Doe was going on with her testimony, Diddy was doing something that really didn't sit well with the judge. Diddy started nodding at the jurors, almost like he was signaling them to believe what Jane was saying. It wasn't like an innocent nod either. It was more like he was saying, "Yup, I did it. What are you gonna do about it?" The judge caught that and shot him a side eye. However, the judge let the testimony go on. Then, the second witness, Brianna Bongolan, took the stand. And things got even messier when she made some pretty serious allegations. She said that Diddy had threatened to throw her off the balcony of a 17-floor building. Now, I'm sure you can imagine how this went down.
During the testimony of Brianna Bongolan, this is a friend of Cassie Ventura's, who has accused Sean Combs of once dangling her over a balcony. Sean Combs was nodding quite a bit at various moments in the testimony, and the judge admonished him. He said that he was nodding vigorously, looking at the jury, and that if this continued, he would consider removing Combs from the courtroom.
His defense team quickly jumped in and tried to tear apart her testimony. They claimed she was exaggerating and that she didn't have her facts straight. According to them, there was no dangling over the balcony as she had claimed. They basically made her look like a liar. Here's where things took another turn. Diddy, after hearing the cross-examination, did something that really set the judge off. He looked at the jurors and nodded at them vigorously.
Combs again was very expressive, particularly when his attorney revealed a contradiction in the testimony of Bongolan.
It's also interesting that the judge used that word nodding vigorously, because I had in my own notes that he was doing that same thing multiple times. One was when the defense on cross was saying that it wasn't true that he had sexually assaulted Bongolan, and Combs was nodding his head.
He was trying to influence the jurors, and the judge noticed. That's when the judge had enough. He slammed his gavel down and called for an emergency break. The judge was absolutely furious at this point. So, there we are, in the middle of this break, and the judge pulls Diddy's attorney aside. He told Mark, "Didn't I make it clear that there would be no interaction with the jurors? Didn't I tell you that no facial expressions or gestures were allowed?"
The judge telling Diddy's attorney, "I was very clear. There should be no facial expressions to the jury. There was a line of questioning where your client was nodding vigorously and looking at the jury. There should be no efforts to have any interactions with this jury."
Mark, probably sweating by this point, nodded and said, "Yes, Your Honor, you did." And then the judge drops the bomb. "If this happens again, I'm kicking Diddy out of the courtroom, and he won't be part of the trial until the end."
And he said he had previously actually warned the defense that that was inappropriate, that Diddy shouldn't be trying to interact with them or make any kind of expressions, and that if he continued to do that, he would let prosecutors kind of intervene or, in worst case scenario, even kick Diddy out of court.
According to observers, Diddy was using body language, silent nods, cold stares, and small gestures to send a message. It wasn't loud or obvious, but it was enough to make people uncomfortable. These weren't just harmless movements. They felt like warnings. Even the judge seemed to notice, calling out Diddy's behavior for what it was, a form of subliminal harassment meant to rattle the witnesses and maintain control. And honestly, that might be all Diddy has left. Silent threats in a room where his power is slipping away. Fast forward to the end of the day, you can just tell Diddy was feeling the weight of the situation. Diddy, looking like he was about to faint, lowered his head in shame. He knew he had crossed the line. Mark probably gave him some serious advice on how to behave moving forward, because no one's going to let him slide again. No matter what Diddy does from here on out, it's clear that it might be next to impossible for him to get out of this one. And judging by the way he is behaving in the courtroom, it might be just a matter of time. So, there you have it. Do you also think that Diddy was trying to intimidate the jurors? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates. I'll see you in the next one.